Question number 6 we talked about in class, but I'll go over it one more time. And so what we find out is that the axis of symmetry is at x equals -1, and it's a quadratic function intersecting the horizontal at x equals 1, 0. And so they want you to write down the x coordinate of the other point. And again, this is where I said, drawing out this picture, what information are they telling you? So there's my graph. And at 1, 0, it intersects the horizontal axis. So here at 1, it intersects the horizontal axis, has an axis of symmetry at x equals -1. So at -1, we have the axis of symmetry. And that's about it. And then they ask you to find the other coordinate, x coordinate. And so this being the axis of symmetry, again what we talked about is that this distance between this point is going to be reflected through the axis to another point. And so from -1 to 1 is a space of 2, so that point has to be reflected a space of 2, and so out here this would be -3. So for A, write down the x coordinate of the other point. Well, x equals -3. And then for B, write down the value of the function at f equals -1. It has a maximum value at y equals 5. Well, so that tells me up here at 5, this graph has its maximum, which means it must be opening down so that it goes through those 2 points and reaches a maximum at 5. And where does it reach that maximum? On the axis of symmetry. So I actually can kind of sketch that this graph looks something like that. And so what is the value at f equals -1? Meaning, what is the value of the function along here when I put -1 into the graph or into the function? Well, out comes the answer, -5. So f of -1 is equal to 5. If I asked you, just as a side note, what is f of -3? Well, at -3, what is the value of the function? And that's 0. But that was a little side note. Then part 2, so that was B part 1. Part 2, find the range of the function. And again, thinking of range, I mentioned, illustrated like vocal range. What's the highest note you can reach? What's the lowest note you can reach? And because range is always the y value, so right now I know y is involved, and y has to be less than the highest point I can reach and bigger than the lowest point I can reach. So if this were a graph of my vocal range, the highest note I would be able to hit is 5. What's the lowest note I can hit? Well, according to this graph, I can go very, 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 very low. In fact, I can go so low that my voice goes on and on. We said we could say that's -infinity, but what is -infinity? That we don't know. So here's what I do know. My voice will never get higher than 5. and this tells me my voice will never be greater than 5. It can be less than 5, all the way down here, but I know it will never get greater than 5, and that is the range of the function. Think of it as your vocal range. When you think it, because it'll be the y-axis, the highest point going down to the lowest point, which in this case we don't have one. And there's question number 6.